America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, thank you. I need a motion to adopt the agenda. Commissioner Brown, I need a second. Commissioner, oh my goodness, I forgot your name. I know. Commissioner Romano. Let's vote. You forget everybody's name when you're sitting here.
Should have mixed them up for you.
I don't have my. I can't see you. I can't see your name tag. You're done. And it passes. We need approval of the minutes dated October 30th, 2019.
So moved.
Moved by Kleinfeld.
Supported by Hall.
Supported by Hall. Vote.
Good job. Jumped right on that one.
Is that the next one? And that passes 12-0. Do we have any public participation for today? We have 5 minutes to speak on agenda items. Anybody? And so we'll close that. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, come on. There you go.
Hi, my name's Nancy Early. I live in St. Clair Shores. Rapid transit has been in the news lately, and 3 counties.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
Wayne, Washington.
Excuse me. The first public speaking is about.
I'm
it's
sorry.
limited to items on the agenda. This isn't an agenda item. Can you speak on the second public participation?
Oh, certainly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple more minutes. Agenda item 6, we have a presentation from Gary Owens, a legislative update. Do I have a motion? From Commissioner Carabelli, second from Commissioner Ha.
Thank you, Commissioners, and I appreciate the time. I'll try to keep it relatively short, and with the legislative activity as of late, that will not be difficult. The legislature is coming back from a 2-week break now, and before that, I think it's important just to walk through a little bit of how we got here with the budget. The legislature did pass a budget in September, and the governor did not feel that she had adequate ability to impact that budget. She didn't feel that she had adequate ability to have a seat at the table to have a larger roads package. There were several pieces that she wanted in the budget that were not obtained, and with that, she decided to veto about $500 million in certain funding. I think the total ended up coming close to $1 billion. And asked the legislature to go back to the drawing table. And when that happened, the legislature essentially broke this into 2 pieces. They planned to send an additional supplemental when they sent the original budget up, and held that supplemental back. So some of the items that she vetoed are now being essentially are identified as essential or bare minimum, and there's a number of different terms, but those things include rural hospitals, secondary road patrol funding, Pure Michigan, some education funding for charter schools, and some other things that were essentially tabled in order to bring folks back to the table, autism funding, and some of the things that you all have read about. There was a deal before the recent break between the governor and the Speaker of the House, and the Senate Majority Leader did not like that. The reason being, right after the original budget was passed, the governor decided to utilize a board that consists of the governor, Secretary of State, Department of Attorney General, Treasury, and Transportation, known as the State Administrative Board, which is primarily their function is to approve expenditures over $250,000. That's essentially why the State Ad Board is there. Anytime a contract reaches a certain threshold, there's another check and balance on those large contracts. They go before that board, they get approved or denied, or asked to revisit. Well, the governor utilized it in a different way this time, and in an effort to essentially shift some money around that the legislature wasn't willing to do for her. As you would imagine, the legislature did not take kindly to that. They felt that it was outside of the purview of the executive office. They felt that, budgetary concerns as prescribed in the Constitution are legislative, and of course, mostly on the Republican side, a little bit more vocal about those things. But I think in total, the legislature felt and vocalized their displeasure with her utilization of the ad board, and now started to float this idea that they were going to limit the ability for her to utilize the ad board like she had in the past in the future. And that has been the sticking point since that day, especially with the Senate Majority Leader. As of about 2.5 hours ago, 3 hours ago, they did announce that there's a tentative deal. Maybe not announced publicly, but there is a tentative deal. They are planning to essentially move the essential services supplemental, as they're referring to it, essentially the stuff that she vetoed, with a couple of additional items that she would like included. They're going to pass that tonight, and some form of an ad board reform that they believe, both sides believe, that they can live with, that kind of says that during certain ad board activities there may be an ability to come back to the drawing board in the Appropriations Committee and have some legislative oversight. And it seems like all three parties have signed off on that. We anticipate the essential services supplemental, again, that's the stuff that she vetoed in late September, early October, to be passed tonight with some sort of ad board reform and a signature to be given to that, and then start to work towards that other supplemental. That other supplemental includes essentially a ton of different projects, one-time funding, some spending, and then, of course, will be brought back to the table on the roads package. So to simplify it, tonight they are hoping to pass. They've only got one more full week scheduled, but they could go into that third week if they needed to. It's tentatively scheduled for the third week of December, but next week is the last week that they're fully scheduled. They're going to pass the essential services budget tonight, the supplemental with some ad board reform, and then come back. And in January is when we will see a supplemental that hopefully includes projects like the Great Lakes Nature Center that you all have heard of, and other projects like that that have been left out of this budget in an effort to try and keep it clean, quote unquote. So, any questions on the budget?
He's not on the budget, though. Commissioner Leonetti, are you on the budget? Is your question about the budget?
Yeah, I guess it is. Gary, good to see you. Thanks for what you're reporting on. One of the things we're concerned with here this afternoon, in terms of we've got our own budget to pass here after this meeting, is the straddle cell. Are you familiar with that? The jail, money to the local jails. The governor vetoed funds for what are called straddle cell cases, if you're familiar with that.
I'm not.
Okay. So if you're not familiar with it, I guess you don't know if these things that are supposedly going to be done tonight, if that includes the straddle cell funding. To give you an idea of how it affects Macomb County, in previous years, Macomb County would get about $1 million to the Sheriff's Department from the state for what's called straddle cell type of incarcerations. Straddle cells, they could either go to the Department of Corrections with the state, or they could stay in our county jail. And we were often given $1 million from the state to accommodate straddle cell type incarcerations. When the governor vetoed these things, she included straddle cell. So our department, our Sheriff's Department, was short about $1 million. So I guess you can't answer my question because you don't know whether or not.
No, anything that the governor did veto will be included in the budget that'll be passed tonight. So all of those essential services, there are some one-time projects that probably won't come back into the fold, but any of those, secondary road patrol, there are some different pieces that involve the local jails and involve the sheriff. So I would assume that's in that package of line items. That is included in the essential services supplemental.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Good to see you. Thank you.
That was your question. Okay. Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Just when you go back, if you would check on that, because I had heard yesterday that everything was in there except that. And my information may not be correct. Also, things are changing and moving so fast that it may be obsolete. Maybe that was the day before or something. But there was a discussion about that and a discussion about what commissions can do if that didn't come back. Can we just tell the sheriffs, just take them straight to state prison? So
Yeah, there's a secondary conversation as well, obviously, about timing. So if they're deeming it something that they can address in that January supplemental, then that's what they would do. They would take the items that, communities need today, that where, there are certain school systems and other types of systems that are spending money essentially on the hope that this supplemental is passed. Those are the dollars that they're really focused on trying to get out the door.
Okay, if you would just check on that specific thing
Will
and
do.
get back with us through an email to the offices, that would be great. Thank you.
Will do.
I believe, Steve, do you have some information on that for us?
This is sometimes also known as the diverted felons program.
Okay.
Now, that may or may not mean anything to you, but that, we refer to it here as the diverted felons program.
I don't know if it's
Okay.
included.
Yeah, I want to make that.
And I'm not even sure the bill is fully drafted, to be fair, right?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
just wanted-
so I will get back on an email hopefully tonight, based on what I can find out on the way out. Any other budget questions? Just a couple bills that I wanted to touch on, because I know you guys have a tight agenda. The regional transit conversation is back. As you might imagine, it can be controversial depending on where you're from. Leading the charge on this, of course, is Wayne County and the city of Detroit and Washtenaw County in some ways. But I think they found a solution that is much less controversial than in the past. The approach is essentially to use this Municipal Partnership Act, which is actually adopted back for the west side of the state with a bonding ability to do multi-communities and kind of contiguous communities and how they're putting those together. And essentially what the bill will do is say that any community that wants to be part of some sort of regional transit plan, which today it seems would include Wayne County, Washtenaw, Detroit, that area, and then of course Oakland has, depending on who you talk to, different conversations coming at it as far as their position on the bill, and I'm unsure what position on the bill Macomb was taking. It was in the it was in committee yesterday. There was no position taken by the county, but what the function does is it allows for any county to essentially be added on later. It's an opt-in instead of an opt-out. And you could essentially see how the relationship would work. So contiguous counties could get together, go to the ballot for whatever the max millage is in that county for transit or similar usages, and partner with counties that are already going to be part of it. So as of, based on testimony yesterday in committee, I would say that's going to be Washtenaw and Wayne. And I think Oakland hasn't made a decision yet. So we'll see how that kind of develops. But of course, that would be of the purview of the county commission and the county in general on what position the county took as far as willingness to be part of regional transit or not. Any questions on that, Bill? Sure.
I do see some questions. Commissioner Majak?
So thanks for coming here today, Gary. So first question I have is, so you said Macomb County has not made a decision on this or not? Who's the deciding person or government entity that if they wanted to opt in or opt out would play a part in this? Do you need a resolution by the County Board of Commissioners? I know Executive Hackle has been pretty much outspoken against it. I'd like to hear your thoughts.
I'm not sure what the governing I would assume it would defer. I would probably defer to the chair and to legal counsel on what the charter would say and who had the authority to opt in but I know the statute reads that the locality needs a resolution by the governing body of the unit of the entity to opt into the system.
So when we created the SMART authority and voted on that in the 90s, Macomb County as a whole opted in, and it was a vote by the people for all that. And my understanding now, the RTA, looks like Washtenaw, Wayne County, they're opting in as a whole, including the city of Detroit. But could a community, let's say like Warren, if Macomb County wants to, let's say just that one municipality, if they wanted to opt in, they could potentially do that, or?
I don't
I'm
have
not
the
sure.
answer to that. I don't know if that it has to be, I believe it has to be contiguous.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that any non-border communities, but I have to get an
Okay.
answer on that. I don't know. I actually think it is the county.
Okay.
But let me
So
let me
we
check
need
on
to
that.
find out that, regardless of what our political views, if you're for this or against this, I would like us to know how that would take place. Who would decide this? County executive, county board of commissioners, legislatures, individual municipalities. The RTA, it is controversial. It is a big thing going on. The voters voted against it by a pretty good margin, I believe, in Macomb County. And as I understand, Washtenaw, Wayne, and Oakland, or excuse me, not Washington, I think Wayne and Oakland, they voted more for that. So obviously they're taking that approach that the RTA may be more pertinent to those communities and less to Macomb. But however, with that being said, just yesterday or 2 days ago, we were talking about the DIA and wanting to have more representation on the DIA from Macomb County. This is another example of maybe us, in a bad way, of not having a seat at the table. That's what I'm kind of concerned about. I understand, voters may not like it here, or the millage, they're calling for 5 mills or up to 5 mills. I understand that, but on the other hand, I think we need to be very careful and think about this and think about, do we want to have a seat at the table or not? So I think that's all I have to say on that, and if anybody wants to comment on that, that'd be great. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Commissioner Carabelli?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Gary. First question is, what, are you lobbying one way or another on this? Have you been given direction, and are you lobbying?
So we represent Wayne County, the city of Detroit, and
On
Washtenaw.
behalf of Macomb County?
No, so we're not talking to members one way or the other because the county hasn't taken a position, period.
Okay. Well, let me give you a little bit of insight that bothers me already. So we talk regional, and I'm not going to grandstand and take up a lot of time. We talk about the DIA, Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne, and Detroit. We talk about the zoo, Oakland, Macomb, Wayne, and Detroit. We talk about, come on, help me out, the Cobalt Hall tax, Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne. SEMCOG, or no, SEMCOG, it does it. You have Detroit Water and Sewer Detroit, Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne. Well, there's a little theme to it, Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne. And the reality is we want to be regional. Yet they don't want to participate in a regional process, but yet now Ann Arbor wants to have a train or transportation to get down to the airport. Now Washtenaw wants to be part of a region. And I call BS on that. I mean, this is really troublesome because yet all the taxpayers in Macomb County are paying for all these other things that are going on. Now Washtenaw wants to be part, and we're going to have to they get a seat at the table, and our taxpayers are going to be paying for it. Right now, if you have something that they have up in Lansing that they have drafted, if you could forward that on to us, because I'm not that familiar with it other than what you've told me and little snippets on the radio. Because this is getting ridiculous. It fails because by the time that last one would have came to Macomb County, my kids would be collecting, I'd be on Social Security. It'd be a long time, and yet we're going to be paying for these other communities. Now, somebody wants to join the party late? No, that's not right.
Thank you. Commissioner Smith? Chair Smith?
Thank you. I'm pretty sure that the charter does not dictate who in Macomb County makes that decision, and I think that the language has some pretty specific requirements for the county commissions of the counties to actually opt in, but as far as who actually tells whoever is in charge whether should want to be involved or not, that's what I would like to know, because they don't come to us. Although I'm pretty sure that the Municipal Partnership Act has something to do now, or some of the changes with it have to do with more county commissioners actually having to sign on.
There's language in the bill that says that a resolution has to be passed to opt in, to put it on the ballot in Macomb. So I believe this body would have to pass a resolution to opt in to whatever they're thinking about doing.
Okay, well, and my point to that is we've never been asked, right? Whether we want to opt in or opt out, the executive says we're out. Whether you agree or disagree, the point is that we are not, again, for the last bunch of years, being brought into this conversation to say, what does, Sterling want? What does that person on the phone want? What is, so anyway, if you could figure that out for us and find out, who actually has the say, if you could figure that out, that'd be great too. I just know there's something in there that the commissioners would have to opt in, but no one's asking us if we even want to be in. And I imagine that would just...
I think that's why they're taking the tack that they are with this bill. They know that it's controversial. They know that there's a lot of ill will towards certain communities being in or out, etc. It's the most passive version that they could possibly come up with. When you look at the past versions that have come, that were essentially opt-outs and very prescriptive about which counties are in and which are out. This doesn't name any counties. This doesn't refer to anybody in the bill. It essentially just says it's a mechanism by which counties have the ability to come together as a group and make a determination whether or not they want to share transportation, or it doesn't even mention transportation services.
So you don't know what our Macomb County delegation in Lansing is, what their position is on this, right? All we know right now is that our executive's position is this.
Well, the executive specifically didn't put a card in of opposition, neutral, support, or anything for the specific bill. Again,
let's just say that's the only thing we've heard from, right?
Yeah,
so I don't know what our legislative body, if you know, and if you could find out what their general position is on it, that would be great. And that's my only question.
The approach is so passive that I think it's hard for folks to oppose up there as of right now, because it essentially says that we're going to allow our local bodies of government to make a determination amongst themselves to whether or not they want to sit at the table.
So this is step one,
yeah,
putting that in place, and then it would be
completely different than past RTA forms. It's not even called the RTA. It's an old mechanism that they found that they used out of the city of Grand Rapids to be able to dip into Kent County for certain services. It's an old bonding mechanism.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Drollet?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to Commissioner Myjak's question, my understanding is that old bonding mechanism that you're referring to, and this is just my understanding, required each municipal local unit of government to opt in. So that would be like St. Clair Shores, Harrison Township, East Point, so forth, individually. But what's being proposed in Lansing would modify that to allow a county to vote to opt in. So if that change gets made, it would change the existing mechanism to allow the county as a whole to opt in, or I guess, I don't know, depending on how they change it, if they would still allow individual communities to opt in. So we'll have to see how that changes as it develops.
Thank you. Commissioner Ha?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Gary, for being here. I just want to reaffirm what our chairman said. Before we get too deep into who's doing what and how it's going to happen and what people think is being proposed and said, we need you to outline the process for us, who makes the decision, and if there's a time frame element in it too. Historically, we've been dropped things and said, well, you got a week and a half to make a decision on it. So my preference would be follow the chairman's recommendation and get us the process and limit our dialogue on it tonight until we know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah,
thank you, Madam Chair.
On the process, it's silent. The only language that's in there is it says that any government or any local unit that decides to get in has to do so by resolution. That's all it says. Any other questions? The last bill that I wanted to mention is the term limits bill for county commissioners, taking it to 4 years. It's still in committee in Senate local government. I don't know why that bill will not end up getting done. I think that for the most part it's still in the vetting process. I still am not hearing any opposition whatsoever, other than some individual legislators that are asking whether or not it's necessary, probably because they may be term limited soon and might want to run for county commissioner. I'm unsure. But again, it's still in the local government committee in the Senate, and we will continue to monitor it.
We have a question. Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Actually, just a little bit of information on that, and I'm not going to get into everything, but it's a lot more than that. And it's not going to go anywhere this year. I'm 99.9% positive it's not going to go anywhere this year. There are some political aspects and there are some outside organizations that don't have anything to do with this issue that are tagging onto this issue, but it's a lot more than a couple of commissioners. And that's all I want to get into at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Smith?
Thanks. Gary, I'm going to just ask you if you wouldn't mind, since this is kind of a long meeting, we have another important meeting after this. I have 3 things for you, but maybe if you wouldn't mind coming back sometime in January or something when it's not as crazy. One is the state task force on jail and pretrial incarceration. That, the task force they're working on. There's some other legislation about a task force for to address raising water levels, because I know we have that issue in St. Clair Shores and Chesterfield and Harrison. If there's any progress on this. And that was Jack O'Malley's, I think, is working on legislation on that. And then if you could get us any status on the Pete Lucido's Senate Bills 27 and 28. The ones regarding vehicle registration fees and the Secretary of State, directing them to the individual counties. And the raising the age for judges. So those 3, if you wouldn't mind, I mean, they're not important right this second to, go on, but those are 3 things, if you wouldn't mind coming back with, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Anything else before I leave?
Any other questions? I don't believe so. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you for the time.
Appreciate your update.
Congratulations on your new baby.
Aw, congratulations. All right, we need to vote to receive and file. Oh, thank you. And that's passed 12-0. Agenda item 7, our correspondence. We need a motion to receive and file. Commissioner Drollet and Commissioner Romano. Does anybody want to speak to this? Or we just, okay. Okay. Agenda 8, new business. Any new business from commissioners? Okay, Commissioner Kleinfeld?
Very quick, and then I won't speak on the second meeting on new business. So, first of all, I chaired my first meeting yesterday, and there's more commissioners there, but I said, is there motion, support? And then I looked out at them and I said, please vote. And they all just stared. They don't have iPads. Oh. And they all just stared at me like I was crazy. I thought you guys would enjoy that. So
We need to get their technology.
that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now I'll ask for public participation. Public participation? Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name's still Nancy Early. I live in St. Clair Shores. Rob Myjack is my county commissioner. Rapid transit has been in the news lately. Wayne, Oakland, and Washtenaw County are moving forward with the rapid transit plan. Macomb County is stuck in the mud. Rapid transit would help elderly, handicapped, people going to work, school. It would increase Macomb economy, more businesses, more jobs, more people being employed. The cost for rapid transit is, it's on the second page. It's 4.6 billion. 1.2 mils. And over a 20-year plan, that's less than $100 a year. We're being left behind. The other counties, their economy is going to grow, their businesses are going to grow. I mean, Amazon came into Michigan. Our infrastructure and our schools were why Amazon didn't give us a second look. So if we can't get a rapid transit plan in Macomb County, 43 states already have some form of a rapid transit plan. And we're losing federal dollars. This would increase federal dollars and more money coming into Michigan. So please think about this. This is something for the future. And if we don't get involved, I mean, money, jobs, everything. And seniors, they're going to be kind of sitting on the sidelines. So please think about this. This is for the future of Macomb to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other speakers?
Good evening. I'm Carol Chi. I live at 35325 Moravian Drive, Sterling Heights, Michigan, and Mr. Romano is my Board of Commissioners, is my commissioner. I'm also going to speak a little bit about mass transit. I have a few points that I was writing down as they were talking. I've heard two presentations because I'm the chair of the Sterling Heights Democratic Club, and I'm the treasurer of the North Macomb Democratic Club, and I go to a lot of different meetings and stuff. Anyway, I heard this presentation twice before the last election about mass transit. Young people don't drive. Young people and my own nieces and nephews didn't want to drive until they were like way into their 20s, not at 16. And that's the case with so many young people. They don't want to drive. They're afraid. They're hooked onto their phones constantly. So mass transit will help them. We also have people coming in, young people coming in from other states to go to college here and maybe get a job here. And they don't drive because they have mass transit in those states. And I'll get to that later about mass transit in other states. So we want to have mass transit for them. Jobs. We have jobs in all these different counties. I heard that was part of the presentation that I heard. There are jobs in different counties. People are not coming up to those jobs because they don't have a car. And you may say, well, why don't they just get a car? Well, not everyone can afford a car, let alone the insurance, especially if they live in the Detroit area where I grew up. They're redlined, so they can't afford the insurance. And pretty soon this whole tri-county area, if not 4 counties, is going to be redlined, I'm afraid. Michigan would like to gain population, not lose it. We keep losing it, and we're going to lose another congressional representative because we're going below 10 million. We're going to go below 9 million possibly. We want to keep people in this state. We don't want them to leave the state. My own nephew said, I think I'm going to go to Colorado. I'm going to move there and be a teacher. Well, luckily he decided to stay. He got married. He bought a house in Detroit. So he's a great builder of Detroit. And so am I. Great supporter. Almost everybody in their last 7 years of life, if they're lucky enough to live that long, which a lot of people are, they lose the ability to drive. So they need mass transit. And they can't necessarily afford Lyft or Uber and don't want to depend on that, don't know how to use it, don't know how to use the phone to get to it and all that. They lose the ability to drive either because of vision problems or Parkinson's disease or some other disease that they might have or slow reaction time, which happens to really everyone as they age, last 7 years of their lives. So we need mass transit for that. In those presentations I heard, it would cost, and I live right near 15 Mile Road, it would cost, there'd be a bus going there along 15 Mile Road, a fast bus, that would have taken me to the airport and saved me money if I want to go visit relatives outside the state of Michigan or go on a trip. Instead of parking my car at the airport for a week and being charged $100 or more, I could get to the airport and back for $16 or $18 one way. I could just walk to the bus stop or have a neighbor take me there and wait with me in the winter and get a bus, an easy bus to go there. Comfort, cheap, convenient, inexpensive, time saver, all that, hassle saver of driving in the traffic as we all get older, like I'm getting and everybody else is. We want to encourage and make available transit to other counties for work, for jobs, for entertainment venues, for sporting events, etc. Finally, I've got something to say about Mr. Hackle, the executive. He has RTA board reps, and that's who advises him to go against this, let alone he may be against mass transit also, as apparently some people in Macomb County are. And that's unfortunate. So we need more education. When I listened to those two presentations, that woman said, well, we're going to have commercials. I saw one commercial. We're going to educate a lot of people. Well, if you go to a club meeting, perhaps, but if you don't go there, if they don't have town halls all over, if we don't educate the people of this county, as Mr. Majek said, we are going to be left behind. I feel that's already happening. And if we don't want to support, it's funny when you talk about, you say, oh, these are taxes.
I just wanted to remind you it's limited to 5 minutes, so you have about 30 seconds.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our state is residents of our state are already paying into the federal government taxes, and those taxes are going to the states that have mass transit. We've been doing it for decades. We've been losing out on that money. So please encourage Mr. Hackle, and if you have any say in it, please encourage mass transit. Thanks so much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I need a motion to adjourn. I'm sorry, any other speakers? No? Okay. Move to adjourn. Move to adjourn. Commissioner Majek and Commissioner Drolet. We have our full board immediately following. We just need a couple minutes to set up.